I will just call the medical standards members right
Correct.
now.
We'll start with medical standards and then do the REMAC after.
Okay. So I'm calling medical standards members. Please let me know if you're here. Paul Barbara.
Here.
Thank you. Cindy Basilios.
Here.
Joseph Bove. We need to find out if Dr. Bove still wants this seat. He hasn't been here in a while.
I will discuss.
Neil Semilovic. Wallace Carter. Robert Krupe.
Here.
Jeffrey Douglin. Or Lauren Costurco.
Yep, I'm here, Marie.
Okay. Reed Caldwell. Jonathan Berkowitz.
Hey,
Doc-
I'm here.
Thank you. David Lobel.
Present, just grabbing the unmute.
Okay. Ed Jarvis.
I'm here.
Thank you. Jeff Rabrich. Jeff, no. Mike Redlener, I believe he said he couldn't be here tonight. And Dr. Schenker is here.
I'm here.
Anthony Shalish. Rafael Torres. Jason Zimmerman. Nicholas Alexandru.
Here, Marie.
Thank you. Glennis Seda.
Here.
David Benelli.
Here.
Dario Gonzalez.
Here.
Doug Isaacs.
Here.
Bradley Kaufman.
Here.
Anne Marie Grigenti.
Here.
Kevin Ward. I believe he's doing an exam tonight.
Kevin is out personal issues, and Robert's giving an exam.
Okay. Thank you. Grace Cacciola.
Here.
Thank you. Madeline Fawn.
Present.
Sean Graves.
Present. Good evening.
Robert Ackerman.
He's not going to be here tonight, Marie.
Okay. Morty Lax.
I'm here.
Okay. Art Cooper. Yadidja Langsam.
Present.
Lewis Marshall.
Present.
Okay. Kevin Munjal.
Here.
Jessica Van Voorhees. Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 22 members present, and that makes our quorum for medical standards.
Excellent. Okay, so let us take the attendance for REMAC. If we have a quorum, then we will begin the joint medical standards REMAC meeting.
Okay. And here we go again. Grace Cacciola.
Here.
Glennis Seda.
Here.
Brad Kaufman.
Here.
Dario Gonzalez.
Here.
Thank you. Nathan Reisman.
Here.
Pam Lai.
Here.
Nick Alexandru,
Here.
Doug Isaacs,
Here.
Anne Marie Gregenti.
Here.
Samia McEachin. Jeffrey Rabrich. Reed Caldwell. Jonathan Berkowitz.
Still here.
Okay. Lou Marshall,
Here.
Mike Redlener, Dominic Battinelli, Efren Rendon, Joseph Schenker.
I am here.
Okay. Sean Graves,
Here.
Art Cooper, Robert Winchell,
Here.
Ed Jarvis.
Sure.
Mark Cantor,
Here.
Robert Krupe,
Here.
Mary Foote or Timothy Stiles.
Tim Stiles is here.
Thank you. Laura Ivacoli. Stuart Kessler.
I'm sorry, I'm here. It's Laura.
That's okay. Matthew Fink. Wallace Carter. Eric Cohen. Kevin Munjal. Kevin Munjal.
I'm present.
Okay, Cindy Basilios.
Here.
Adwa Smalls Mantley. Matthew Harris.
I'm here. Good evening.
Thank you. Jessica Van Voorhees. Ben Zabar.
Zabar here.
Thank you. Paul Barbara.
Here.
David Benelli.
Still here.
Peter Wire.
Here.
Eudigia Langson.
Present.
Anthony Shalish. Okay, we have a quorum.
Excellent. Again, I apologize for the duplicity of these roles, but in order to have everybody from medical standards participate and then have the legislative body, the REMAC, have their quorum, we have to do that as a broken up roll call. Okay, so now what we'll do going forward, we are going to begin the REMAC meeting when medical standards report happens. That will be the medical standards meeting. We will then return to REMAC to complete the meeting and hopefully save us some time and effort. During the medical standards meeting, any votes of the medical standards committee will be done by consensus, and REMAC meetings will be a roll call vote for the purpose of statute. Okay, that's a mouthful.
For the
but-
purposes of the record, Dr. Rabrich came into the room.
Great. Hi, Jeff. Welcome. Okay, so let us begin by approving the minutes from the January 11th meeting. Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Excellent. Any questions, concerns, or comments about these minutes? None? Okay, great. Okay, Marie, do you want to read the correspondence report?
Sure. And before I do that, I just want to introduce Michelle Clem. She worked for us many years ago and then went away for a while, and I was able to get her back to fill the operations position here at REMSCO. So you'll be seeing her a lot at these meetings. Please be nice to her. I want her to stay. So, so welcome, Michelle.
Hello, everyone. Pleased to meet you.
Welcome back.
Okay, so correspondence report. For membership, we received a resume from Sarah Kate Rostansky, MD. She's at the NYU School of Medicine, Department of Neurosurgery, Stroke Division. She was recommended by Dr. Langsam. So I really have to set up a membership committee for medical standards and REMAC. We have a few resumes to look at. From fire department, from Dr. Benelli, I received Kings County Hospital has rejoined the LVO capable hospitals. The hospital destination appendix is going to be updated to reflect that. We have no New York State enforcements. And one of the items that I did not bring forward at the last meeting, NYPD has submitted a request for protocol revision to their tactical protocols with regards to tranexamic acid. I'm not sure I pronounced that correctly. I'm going to forward that to the protocol committee so that you can review it and give it your approval. And sorry about that, Dr. Jarvis. I should have brought it up at the last meeting. I hope this does not cause you any issues. If it does, let me know. We sent out agendas, minutes, and associated attachments for this meeting. We sent out a copy of the proposed Article 30 revisions that I'm hoping everyone will look at. We also sent a letter to the New York State Commissioner Bassett urging the maintenance of regional autonomy for REMSCOs and REMACs. And I believe Dr. Schenker is going to be speaking about that. He and the chair of REMSCO co-signed this letter. And that's the end of the correspondence.
So this letter is what we had discussed at the end of last month's meeting. The letter went out. It was sent out to the whole membership for information, so you could read it and see what we wrote. But essentially, it was strongly supporting the need for regional medical advisory committees rather than just the state medical advisory committee and REMSCO and SEMSCO. I'm sorry. So REMSCOs and SEMSCOs. Considering specifically citing the pandemic as an example of where we had to pivot and move faster than the state could follow. It is very important that these changes that Marie sent out to Article 30 are discussed with EMS physicians and EMS professional EMS personnel. Because the reality is that what the needs of Albany or Rochester are not the same as the needs of New York City, and I think it's very important that we make that clear and continue to discuss this. I see Brad has his hand up. As soon as he gets back, we'll let him speak. Go ahead, Brad.
Oh, sorry about that. I was just going to say, I thought I just want to thank you both. It was a very well-written letter, I thought. And I'm glad it was sent. And I was just going to suggest that we all find a way of sharing this letter with a lot, disseminate it somehow to other representatives at the state or the media or somewhere else as well.
Yeah, I would think that if you have any connection to any Congress people or state Senate people to involve your political connections or anyone because of the importance of this regional control. I think that there is a strong push from a Bureau of EMS for the state to run EMS statewide. And I don't think that that's even physician directed. I think that that is one or two people at state EMS who believe that they know how to run EMS better than everybody else. And I think that that is dangerous. And I think that we need to be very strongly voicing our opinions to the contrary. And we can do that in a nice way. We've actually been getting along with the state lately, which is different from previous. I think that if we continue to share the burden of protocol development and the things that they are worried about at the state level, they have to understand that our operational needs are different. And that is really, really important. I see you, Didja, you have your hand up.
I just wanted to confirm what you said, even before you said it. Over the last year, and certainly over the last two REMSCO meetings, it's become to me quite obvious what the direction the Bureau of EMS is going. They really feel that everything should be centralized. There was even a discussion that they would like all advisories, let alone protocols, to be approved by the Bureau of EMS. In fact, they went to their legal counsel, who confirmed to them, naturally, the lawyers that work for you tell you what you want to hear, that advisories have to be approved by the Bureau of EMS. The physicians around the table were extremely perturbed, to put it mildly, about that, and in fact made a motion essentially saying this is not a protocol, and those advisories do not even fall under the Central Bureau of EMS, but rather under the Article 30 giving REMSCO permission. So we have to be very vigilant over this. And for those who have the political power, and I'm looking directly at that largest agency in the world, it's very important that they use the clout to make sure that the powers that be, even if it means going right up to the governor, okay, recognize that New York City is very, very different. Now, you said Albany and Buffalo, but I was going to point out we're even more different than places like Western New York. I recall doing a call up there once when the dispatcher told me, as I'm speeding down the highway, to turn at the first cabbage patch that I saw. And I got on the air and said, ma'am, I wouldn't recognize a cabbage patch if it hit me in the face. Please send someone out to give me directions. So they're very, very different. I mean, most of the state is rural and not urban, as we tend to think of the state. And it's extremely important. This is not the direction we want to go to.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if I can add, if you look at the proposed
Marie,
Article
one
30
second.
changes.
Marie, 1 second. Ben has his hand up. Let me just call on him first, and then I will get to you. I promise.
Oh, and aside from the sort of upstate, downstate thing, I mean, and I know some people are reading it a little differently, but I'm reading it that whereas before the CMAC would basically make protocols and make decisions, and then the commissioner had to either approve or reject those, it now is sort of casting the CMAC in an advisory role, which means the commissioner could just totally ignore anything and write their own protocols or delete or insert or do whatever to protocols or whatever. So that's definitely concerning, because I've seen other states like New Jersey where the sort of similar, the bodies similar to this can't really make protocols. They just advise the commissioner, and then it usually doesn't go anywhere.
Correct. Marie?
Now, I just wanted to ask everyone to look at the proposed changes. They actually go beyond medicine. There are some operational issues in there that may extend to COM process, which most of us really hate, but having the ability to determine which ambulance agencies operate in your region, it gives us authority over those agencies, and they make them our resources. We don't want them to become the state's resources to be removed whenever they feel like it. So people who have a more legalistic type mind than mine, I hope you read it and let us know all the implications.
That's some very good points. Thank you, Ben and Marie. I think that the Article 30 is currently gives more authority to the regions than the state even is giving us now. And the reality is they're looking to change that in a very large way. So again, let's hope that letter generates some stir. I think we should reach out to political allies and whatever we can to voice our opinion. Okay, moving on. The executive committee report. The executive committee did meet briefly just for the purpose via email, and this was for the purpose to discuss the viral pandemic protocol. The viral pandemic protocol requires a re-up every 14 days. We decided at the time of the re-up to not reinstate the viral pandemic protocol. The volumes throughout New York City were going down at that time, and we felt that it was not necessary And again, this was done in conjunction with the executive committee. So just to bring everybody up to speed that the viral pandemic protocol is not in effect right now. Okay, next. So subcommittee reports. So we'll start with medical standards. We'll have medical standards report CNC, and then we'll go from there. So Dave, it's your show.
Thank you, everyone. So let's start with the subcommittee report. We've done everything else so far. So CNC, Dr. Barbara.
All right. Start off on a good note here. All is well at CNC. No active meetings right now due to the test flip. We will be going live with the new exam next Tuesday night. So this is the last week of the existing REMAC test. Once we have some numbers from the new test, we'll have some results for you guys and some interpretations. And I think, the paramedic exam credentialing is going well and physician credentialing is going well. Any issues for CNC committee?
Okay, any discussion for CNC?
Sorry, Dave.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Barbara. Let's move on. We'll move to the protocol committee. Just a reminder to everyone, as if we don't already know, right? February 13th, the 2022 protocols are going into effect, finally. Does Dr. Lai have the ability to share her screen?
Yeah, she was made a host.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to allow Dr. Lai to, we're bringing a couple of protocols for approval by Medical Standards and REMAC. There's been extensive discussion about all of them, back and forth. I'll allow Dr. Lai to present them, and then if there will be any further discussion, we will talk about it here and vote both at Medical Standards and then do a roll call at REMAC. So go ahead, Dr. Lai.
Okay, so the first protocol I want to go over is going to be some changes to our overdose protocol. We did discuss at the protocol committee that just in terms of that, it is a little bit confusing. And I think just with the way that it's written, just in terms of like each protocol having each provider go through all of the steps that are in the CFR section first, and then to the EMT section, then along to the paramedic section sequentially through every protocol. However, with this, especially, for the overdose protocol, that there are potential implications for having patients receive potentially a large amount of naloxone that unto itself has a lot of its own side effects that we do not necessarily want to have our patients be exposed to. So the changes that are proposed here for this overdose protocol are hopefully to try and to clarify some of this, just so that for the example that if our paramedics are going to be the first ones on scene or are the only responders that are on scene, that they are able to give the titrated dose of naloxone as opposed to giving the intranasal doses that are listed in the CFR and the EMT sections first before going to their titratable dose. So as you can see in this protocol, so the changes that are made, so especially in this CFR and all providers level, there is a phrase that is added here. So this number 5 is for CFR and EMTs only when they suspect that an opioid overdose is suspected, and that the paramedics are not on scene, that they are to go ahead, with this protocol. This continues on to the EMT section, so that if the paramedics are going to be on scene first, they may start with their titratable naloxone doses. That is sort of the main thing. The main changes that were brought about with this protocol. To go along with the rationalization for the changes, there were some additions that were made to the key points section as listed here, just to kind of help to explain some of the changes that were made on here, just to reemphasize that it's safest to use the lowest dose of naloxone for that patient. Any questions for this protocol?
Yeah, one thing.
Thank you.
I know
Go
I
ahead,
wrote
Dr.
it, so
Reisman.
this is maybe a little bit late for me, but I think actually in the CFR section, it should say CFRs only. Since the EMTs have the EMTs only in their section. So I think that for the first section, it should say CFRs only, and the second section should say EMTs only. I think that's.
I think that's a valid point. Yep. Okay, any further discussion? I'd like to remind everyone that Marie sent out in advance all these protocols for us to review. Any further discussion? I cannot see if people are raising their hands, so please let me know.
I have to second Nathan's motion, or that's more of a formatting thing.
I think that this is more of a format. I don't think we need to vote on this.
Back in the formatting.
Sounds reasonable.
Okay. Hearing-
Morty has his hand up,
No,
David.
yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't
Oh,
want
sorry.
to.
Marty,
I
go ahead.
know this is pretty simple, but maybe we should just take it out altogether. It should say CFR or EMTs. CFRs for CFR, EMTs for EMT.
I mean, the point of that is that the way we do these protocols now, in the CFR section is for everyone. So there's CFRs, EMTs, and medics. So this is one of the rare circumstances where there's something that we want CFRs to do, and there's something we want EMTs to do, but we don't want paramedics to do that same thing.
Right.
That's why we have this
So, no,
format.
so I'm saying just get rid of the line that says CFR and EMT altogether and get rid of EMTs only. And both should say the rest of it.
But then the problem is that a strict reading of it in that context, a paramedic can say, I'm supposed to do this before I go to the titrated dose. And that's happened in real
Oh,
life.
I see. So you're trying to highlight it in advance so that the medics don't skip it over when they get to the end. Paramedics don't. So I got you. Okay.
And what brought about this change was there's several cases where paramedics actually gave the CFR dose.
Yeah, no argument on that. No, 100%. So this is the right thing to do.
Very good. Any further discussion?
Ben has his hand up, David.
Yes, Dr. Zavar.
Oh, I was just going to say to that, I think the REMAC had decided previously that they wanted each level to give their dose, but not necessarily to give all the previous doses. So that's the other reason to not combine the EMT and the CFR.
Perfect. So we're all in agreement. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Is there anyone in medical standards who opposes or abstains from approving this protocol? Please let me know now. Okay, so this is forwarded now to REMAC as the second in motion for approval and for discussion. Anyone in REMAC wishes to discuss this? Good. So I guess we can do a roll call, Marie. I think you're muted.
Okay, a roll call vote for the revisions with the overdose protocol.
Correct.
Okay, please answer in favor, oppose, or abstain. Okay, Glenn Seda,
In favor.
Bradley Kaufman,
Favor.
Dario Gonzalez,
In favor.
Nathan Reisman,
Approve, in favor.
Pam Lai,
In favor.
Nick Alexandru,
In favor.
Doug Isaacs,
In favor.
Jeff Raybrich,
In favor.
Jonathan Berkowitz,
In favor.
Lewis Marshall,
In favor.
Michael Redlener. Oh, not here.
He's not here.
Joseph Vogt is not here. Arthur Cooper,
In favor.
Robert Winchell,
In favor.
Ed Jarvis,
In favor.
Mark Cantor,
In favor.
Robert Krupe, Dr. Krupe, Get back to Dr. Krupi. Tim Stiles,
In favor.
thank you. Laura Avicoli,
In favor.
Wallace Carter, Kevin Munjal,
In favor.
Cindy Basilios,
In favor.
Dr. Mantley, Matthew Harris,
In favor.
Jessica Van Voorhees, Ben Zabar,
In favor.
Paul Barbara,
In favor.
David Benelli,
Affirmative.
Peter Wire,
Yes.
and finally, Dr. Schenker.
Oh, it sounds like I don't really need to vote.
No, you don't. Had to ask anyway. Okay, this is unanimously carried.
Thank you very much. Okay, Dr. Lai, let's move to the next item.
Can folks mute if they're not speaking?
Yeah, please, if
So,
everyone can mute, there's a lot of background noise of papers shuffling and other things. Okay, Dr. Lai.
Okay, so the next protocol that we have that's come forward from the committee is the old excited delirium and the now new proposed behavioral emergencies protocol. This was just sort of brought to light just after I believe that there has been a lot of things in the news lately about a lot of issues with the treatment of a lot of these patients who do have behavioral emergencies. This comes to be consistent with language that has been put forth by ACEP as well in terms of truly calling these patients who we have formerly known and loved as being EDPs or excited delirium patients to now be known as hyperactive delirium. There was also a huge concerted effort by the members of the protocol committee to match a lot of this language to be consistent with the state protocols on here. So you see that there is quite a bit of language changes, in particular to the CFR and all provider level section that you can see is sort of highlighted in the purple section on here. I'll go through the changes and then bring up some of the issues that were kind of brought forth from the protocol committee that we do need some further guidance, I believe, from REMAC 4. So as you can see here, so the language change here, so it's even like with point number 2, we do have that request law enforcement assistance if the patient presents a risk of physical harm to providers, public, or themselves. So that is a language change, but again, I said that this is consistent with the state protocols. The other sort of like parts of this section on here is a little bit of a reorganization as well as a rewording with some of the language and the grammar just to reflect those changes. We do have on here the new wording of requesting ALS assistance if chemical restraint may be required. This is then further defined in the key points section that we can go over in just a second. There are no changes to the EMT section, but again, just for the re-emphasis for this section for the paramedic section on here, we do have it that for adult patients with hyperactive delirium and who continue to violently struggle despite being physically restrained and are in danger of injuring themselves or others, then the paramedics may go ahead and then to administer the midazolam without any dosing changes as there was before on here. Medical control options, there's just some redundant language. If we did include that previous phrase, into the paramedic section, it makes these other phrases a little bit redundant, so they were then removed. And then to the key points and considerations, there were quite a bit of language that was added on here just to further define some of the new words, I guess, in here in terms of like chemical restraint, what this is, as well as sort of the definition of hyperactive delirium is also included on here for it, as well as a re-emphasis that it's up to the providers to be administering these medications. It's not going to be something that is necessarily as something from law enforcement to be requesting from the providers. I believe that's it. The one question that we do have with this protocol that came up, obviously, with a lot of the legal issues that surround this, especially with a lot of the things that have been highlighted in the news media and so forth, with the Colorado case earlier this summer, as well as other cases before this. And the question that came forth from the protocol committee was that we didn't really quite have the answer to, was that in terms of the potential legality, with this document, and if this is something that we need to have, if this is something that any sort of city legal or anyone else needs to review this, just to make sure that we would be, so if our providers are compliant with this, that they would not necessarily be in sort of the same situation as some of the Colorado providers, understanding while that there are other issues that were involved with that case, but just in terms of the legal issues surrounding a document like this.
Okay, let's open this up for discussion. I see that Art has his hand up, and then Pesach. So Art, why don't you start?
Hi, everyone. Just FYI, there's been quite a bit of discussion about this at the state level. The State EMSC Advisory Committee formed a task group last fall to really look at the whole, hyperactive delirium situation. To that end, we enlisted folks from the Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, and they've been working very closely with us on this issue. I just wanted to give the group, a notice that we will be discussing this at the March meeting of the EMSC Advisory Committee and bringing it to CMAC in April. The focus in dealing with agitated pediatric patients, of course, is non-pharmacologic methods to kind of bring them down. I won't say any more at this particular time. We will be reaching out to Matt Harris's group. Matt, as you may know, chairs the Pediatric Committee for NAEMSP. And before we have our March meeting, we want to reach out to Matt and his group to see if there might be a couple of physicians from the NAEMSP Pediatric Committee with a particular interest in, agitation in kids to, work with us and review the protocol changes that we are going to be suggesting to the state. I think it's premature to bring them up here, just to let you know that this process is ongoing at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. I'd like to add that we're very fortunate to have Dr. Harris with us, and he took part in writing this protocol. And specifically for these concerns, any pediatric medications are medical control options and not standing orders. Pesach.
I just wanted to bring up, I mentioned at the protocol committee a formatting issue. This is the only proposed protocol that we have that requests ALS in the CFR section. All of our protocols, the request for ALS is done by EMTs in the EMT section. In fact, there are some protocols where the only item in the EMT section is to request ALS, and the section was created just for that purpose. I don't think that we should be different than all of the other protocols that we have.
Okay, I don't think that's Is there an issue with moving it to the EMT section, or this is really formatting more than anything. Is there any discussion about this?
On the contrary, it's not just a formatting issue. By putting it in the CFR, you're telling the CFRs who might be the very first responders that this is the first thing they should do. The earlier they call for ALS, the better. I see no reason for them to have to wait for EMTs. The CFRs won't read beyond that line. They're not supposed to read beyond that line. They only read what's up for them. And they should be told to call for medics ASAP I see absolutely no reason. I think it would be wrong to move it down to the EMT level.
Perfect. Thank you. Dr. Zabar, and then
Yeah, if I may.
Paul is first, I think.
Paul was first?
I was, yeah.
I apologize.
Thank you, Ben.
Dr. Barber.
No, I was going to say, I think that's it's just an astute finding. I agree with Dr. Langston, beat me to the punch here. I would argue we should have this for more protocols. You know, I think maybe it's a precedent to set. I mean, if there's a cardiac arrest, maybe we should be calling off CFR. Choke, maybe we should call. I think. I don't want to get into the whole deployment situation, but I fulminantly agree that this is a situation that requires medicines that are only in the availability of an ALS provider in our region. So good job.
Thank you, Paul. I think I'm looking forward to your suggestions in the next protocol committee. Dr. Zabar now.
Yeah, just a little history, because previously the CFR sections had a bunch of places where they said update dispatch of a priority patient, which we removed throughout, because basically CFR in terms of being dispatched is generally only dispatched in ALS calls or calls that specifically are BLS, like trauma. And it was felt like that was sort of more operational. The idea behind having the section EMTs is to specify when the EMTs should immediately transport versus potentially call for ALS. So I don't, if you make that change here, then you sort of have to go through and, do it for cardiac arrest, do it for choking, do it for everything else, which I don't think, generally CFR operationally should be called, updating the dispatcher if the patient's more critical than they thought. And I don't think we should start putting that in everywhere.
So you're suggesting to leave it as is, correct?
Yeah, because I think the idea was for some protocols, like this one for EMTs, that they should potentially wait for ALS because there's something ALS really could offer, where there are other protocols where, that it's really more important to provide BLS care and start transporting and not even to call for ALS. So that was the formatting idea previously.
Thank you. Pesach, you still have your hand up. Is this an old hand or a new hand?
No, I put my hand up, and what I was trying to say is, I'm not saying necessarily that we need to move it here to the EMT section. I'm saying that we need to be consistent with ourselves. And if in every single other protocol, regardless of if CFRs happen to get there first or if they were dispatched with ALS, sometimes CFRs can be there and there's no ALS. And it turns out to be a situation that ALS is required. And in those protocols, we don't have requesting ALS in the CFR section. And part of that was because the CFRs don't really talk to the EMS dispatchers, and there's just a big disconnect. And that was part of the discussion last time. We moved it out of the CFR section, as Ben said, for every single protocol. We made a blanket statement saying we're never going to have in the CFR section requesting ALS, and we went through every protocol and changed it. If we want to revert that decision and put it back where it's appropriate, then we should do it everywhere. But we should be consistent. We should have a philosophy and we should follow it, whether it means being in the CFR section everywhere it's appropriate or nowhere.
1 second. Yes.
So,
okay.
I'm sorry, I'm going to jump the line, but I'm going to jump the line. I'm sorry, but I really feel that there is definitely a time and a place for having things to be consistent within the protocols, and I think that we do that where it is needed. However, I think in this instance, this again, as pointed out by a lot of others like before me on this call, that this is a place where we need to have that deviance as opposed to the other protocols, because now it's a potential safety issue for the CFRs that are going to be operating on scene, and that's why this is going to be moved here. There is a reason for the inconsistency, and I think that is justified here.
Excellent. Captain Klein, you had your hand up. Yoni? Yoni's gone. Maybe he'll,
sorry, I'm
okay,
here. I just wanted to say that actually just to reiterate what Pam said, that although it's important to maintain consistency, this is a public safety and public health issue, so it definitely needs to reside in the CFR section.
Excellent. And also, we're discussing specifically this protocol right now. Any other suggestion to change other protocols can be brought to protocol committee.
That's exactly right, David. I think what you just said is exactly right. This protocol is coming as a seconded motion from the protocol committee. Any further discussion about whether or not in other protocols a CFR should be calling ALS should go to protocol and it should not be discussed here.
Thank you, Joe. I think, Paul, you had your hand up again, or am I mistaken?
It was transient. I think the answers have been provided. So I'm going to withdraw. Maybe duck my hand.
Any further discussion, either from medical standards or REMAC? Excellent. Hearing none, is there anyone on medical standards who either opposes or abstains from moving this protocol to REMAC as second in motion? Okay, thank you, everyone. Marie, let's do a roll call, please, for REMAC, unless there's any further discussion from REMAC members.
Okay, hearing none, we are going to be voting on the behavioral emergency protocol. Once again, answer in favor, oppose, or abstain. Glennis Seda.
In favor.
Brad Kaufman.
In favor.
Dario Gonzalez.
In favor.
Nathan Reisman.
In favor.
Pam Lai.
In favor.
Nick Alexandru.
In favor.
Doug Isaacs.
In favor.
Jeff Raybridge.
In favor.
Jonathan Berkowitz.
In favor.
Lewis Marshall.
In favor.
Arthur Cooper.
In favor.
Robert Winchell.
In favor.
Ed Jarvis.
In favor.
Mark Cantor.
In favor.
Robert Krupe.
In favor.
Timothy Stiles.
In favor.
Laura Ivacoli.
In favor.
Kevin Munjal.
In favor.
Cindy Basilios.
In favor.
Matthew Harris.
In favor.
Ben Zabar.
In favor.
Paul Barbara.
In favor.
David Benelli.
Yes.
Peter Wire.
Yes.
Unanimously approved.
Thank you very much. Dr. Lai, let's move on to the next item.
Sure. So the next and last item here that we have is a medication list that was brought forth from the protocol committee. That a lot of work, as you can see, was put into this. The intent, I do want to just sort of like preface this that we are bringing this forward as a document. It's not necessarily the intent for me to kind of like go through all the different medications as well as the dosages and to discuss all of these sort of line by line. The intent is to kind of bring this forth as a document from the protocol committee as a whole. I understand that, that I think everyone agrees that something like this is a very useful tool for everyone in our region to kind of rely on. However, and kind of with that, I think that it brought to light, a lot of some inconsistencies as well as some questions about some of the medication dosages that we have in our protocols. So even, at the protocol committee, we did discuss some of these that did come up. So I would like to just request that if you do see something in terms of like a medication or a dosage that you think does not quite right or anything like that, is to bring those issues to the protocol committee where we can fully discuss them there at length. I would like to try to avoid those sort of discussions right here, since I think, as David had mentioned before, a lot of the medications and the dosages and those sort of things will have to be discussed within the context of those protocols and the changes made to those individual protocols, and then to come forward from the protocol committee to REMAC for approval. And that's, kind of what I wanted to bring forth for this document. So as you can see, that this is sort of this is a nice summary in terms of the medications as to where those medications are in terms of who they pertain to, whether or not they're standing orders and medical control options, as well as the different routes and the dosages that are in here. So I think that there's been like some offline discussions. I think that originally when we discussed this at the protocol committee, I think that it was kind of brought forward that this would be sort of a additional appendix. However, I think that Joe, I think that, and then this can maybe be discussed at REMAC, if this should end up being like as a different kind of like a standalone document, or if this needs to be coming forward as a part of our appendix section. But nonetheless, we do want to bring this forward just as something for the REMAC to review.
Yeah, no, so Pam, this is great. And I think that the amount of work that went into this and the breakdown is definitely helpful to providers, to agencies, to kind of see what we have and how it works and so on. This document should become part of the New York City drug formulary. That formulary is going to be formatted similar to the New York State formulary, which in the last version of that came out in 2016. It is actually a really nice document. It goes over the indications, contraindications, all of the different things that you would look into a PDR for every medication that's in the New York State formulary is in that document. I think we should kind of take this table and do that for every medication on this table and generate a New York City regional formulary. The one piece of the puzzle that we need to still address, I don't know if you guys began the conversation at protocol, is what would consist of a medication that is required, what it would consist of a medication that is not required in order to operate as an ALS agency. That is something that has over the course of history been a challenge, is that we've never really had a set medication list as to what is required to be an ALS unit or not. So I think that is something that we need to take this and probably highlight the ones that are required. It generally has been you must complete your standing orders. But I think that this is not something that needs to be voted on as a protocol change, but this is going to become part of the New York City formulary. What we do need to figure out is what is required for ALS versus not ALS.
Right,
I think
and
that
I think that this even came up. Oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, like, I thought that this. I think this concept. I think that this very subject was brought up during our last REMAC meeting. And I think that I think it was decided that there was going to be like a separate tag, as you will, to kind of go through those issues and then to determine what would be a requirement for a ALS unit or for a BLS unit.
Right.
And then this was just sort of brought forth as just as a medication list.
Yeah, no, this is great. And I really appreciate it. I dropped the ball, just so everybody knows, on that meeting. So that's my fault. I will pick the ball up and start running again.
Okay, there was a suggestion to actually put this formulary into one of the REMAC appendices, unless we want to, create a new appendix for this.
It's not an appendix, David. It would be a separate document, which is not something that has to go to the state. This is our New York City formulary. As long as we're not outside of the scope of the state formulary, we are allowed to do this without making it a separate appendix or protocol or anything.
Excellent. Dr. Langsam, I see your hand is up.
So I just wanted to echo, I raised this to the protocol committee, and I want to just echo what Dr. Schenker just said. There has to be a disclaimer on the document or indicate individually when a drug is and if available, because it's going to be assumed by some lawyer out there that if it's on the list, it's required to be there. And if some agency does not have a particular drug handy, they're gonna point to this document and say, how come you didn't have it? So it's legally very dangerous to submit this without either a disclaimer, not all of these drugs are required to be carried by every agency, or to go through it and put some indication, a star, a dagger, or something, then it's, with a remark on the bottom to say, if available, or agency decision, or whatever language you want to use. Otherwise, I think this is great. It's long overdue.
Okay, and there is already a disclaimer at the bottom over there. Dr. Lai brought it down just to say that obviously this table is just as a reference, and the protocols are what bind us. Any further discussion regarding this? Okay, very
Dave,
good.
no, Dave.
Yes, go ahead, Paul.
Sorry. We also, I don't know if Pam said it, but we also said that ownership of updates would be at the protocol committee to make this a living document.
Correct. Yeah, no, I think this
it has to be.
Once this is published, it'll be potentially out of being current. And the importance of this document is to maintain its maintenance.
I apologize, Paul. So I will send out an email to the entire REMAC and medical standards, or Marie will send out an email. We will schedule a meeting, not this week, but the week after, which we will, whoever is interested in participating can. We will use this table along with the state formulary document to develop our own, the document that we'll call the New York City Regional Formulary, which will have this and that in it together. I think the two will be a very powerful document overall, and this will be clarified as to what is required to be in service as an ALS agency versus not.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other items from protocol committee, Dr. Lang?
No, that is it. Our next meeting is going to be on February 25th.
Thank you very much. So let's move on to the other tags. So we have the interfacility tag. John, are you, Dr. Berkowitz, do you have any updates?
Yeah, so I am working on a comprehensive document to sum up everything that we've discussed. I also am hoping, I think the meeting kind of fell off the calendar, so the monthly meetings, I need to get that back on the calendar on a monthly basis. So I'll sync up with Marie, but we could just put it the same date. It's always open on my calendar that we're using on a monthly basis, and then we can continue get back into it and try to finalize this. The next, I think we have 2 more sections left and to outline, and then we're gonna draft probably will be a hopefully not too long, but I suspect longish document. So that's my report.
Excuse me, Dr. Berkowitz.
Yes.
Can I just ask you, what are the dates? Can you get back to me with the dates you want for these meetings so I make sure that they're on the calendar?
Yeah, I think it was the first Thursday, if I remember right, but I'll look at my old calendar and see what, like, the last one we had and when it was, because there was a series of them. But well,
okay,
we'll think about
sorry.
No worries, no worries. Trust me, I get it.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Very good. The next tag is the Ecmo Tag. I'll very briefly discuss. The Ecmo Tag met on February 2nd. We reviewed the Rochester Ecmo protocol. The advantage of the Ecmo protocol that Rochester submitted to CMAC is that CMAC approved that protocol. It's very similar to our protocol, and we have decided that it probably would be best to stick to that protocol, since if it's approved for Monroe, it applies also for New York City, and we would start with that. We discussed other issues like a research consortium, the training, etc. The goal with regard to AHA, there have been a lot of discussions back and forth. At this point, I think that they are committed to helping us with project management, or arranging neutral grounds for meetings, etc. And the goal will be to arrange for a meeting with the 5 participating hospitals sometime in March, in order to launch this initiative, bring the protocol for review of the participating hospitals, reviewing the protocol with them, and moving forward from there. So that's where we stand right now. I have not yet set a date for the next tag meeting in March. I will send that out to tag members and to Marie so we can put it on the calendar as well. So I don't believe there's any old business for medical standards. Is there any new business?
Hey, David, if I get a
Okay.
chance, if I can bring something up.
Yes, go ahead, please, Ken.
Yeah, I know there's been some back and forth with some emails to the protocol committee about the dextrose shortage issue. And, we're trying to figure out the best way to do things. I know back in 2017, we had to put a directive out just to say, essentially, whatever you open up your ALS bag and whatever glucose source you have is what we're going to use. I think there's an issue that's coming up, particularly about the pediatrics. So if we could just try to figure that out, because I think some of us are starting to have some severe shortages. And, with the pediatrics, I think specifically it says D10, D25, and some we're finding the only source might be D5. So if we can just kind of figure that out.
Okay, very good. Any discussion about this? Okay, I think it's also, yes, before that, Pesach, I think it's also, that's not the only drug shortage. I believe there's also concern in the region for albuterol. So there are drug shortages around the corner. Pesach.
We just, I believe we sent out a couple of years ago when we had that shortage that any dextrose concentration, D5, D10, D25, or D50 was appropriate as long as you gave the correct dose. And that was targeted to adults. We never really targeted it to peds. And the email and discussion we had at protocol committee last week was basically that pediatrics would be the same, except for, we're obviously not going to give D50 to pediatrics, but we're not going to prescribe specifically D25. You would still be able to use D10 or D5 in children. Neonates would be limited to D10, but in children over 1 month up to 14 years, you'd be able to choose between any concentration as long as it was not over 25%, and then give the correct dose. So we wouldn't prescribe a concentration to give, we would prescribe instead a concentration maximum, with the exclusion of neonates that would remain at D10.
So thank you, Dr. Langsam, then Dr. Harris, then Dr. Reisman, then Dr. Schenker. Okay.
Not in my hand. I'm sorry, it's an old hand.
Okay, so let's go to Dr. Harris.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to support this. I think that being prescriptive about the appropriate dose is how we write the rest of our protocols. It just so happens that dextrose is one of several medications that come in different concentrations, but I think being prescriptive about avoiding 50, which I think should disappear for adults as well at some point, I think was the right way to do this. So I just wanted to lend my support that I think this is now written appropriately and puts people in a good position to use what they have in an appropriate fashion. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Dr. Reisman.
Sorry, I stepped away for a second when this conversation started, but I think at the fire department, we're going to run into trouble because we're not able to buy any other formulation besides for D5. So for the pediatric patient, what Pesach mentioned that we should allow other formulations, I think we may actually need that as an emergency change to allow. My suggestion would be that the formulations currently listed in the protocol be the maximum concentration. Meaning that for 1 month and less, you can use D5 or D10. And then for the pediatrics between 1 month and 14 years, you use 5, 10, or 25. And I think that would allow us to use D5 for pediatric patients.
Understood. Is that something that you would like to bring to protocol?
Yes, I would actually bring it as an emergency motion, to make an emergency change to the protocol, to change in any protocol where it says the pediatric dosage of dextrose. It currently says age less than or equal to 1 month, 10%. You must use 10%. And it says age between 1 month to 14 years, you must use 25%. And my motion is to change that to read age less than or equal to 1 month, use 10% or 5%, and age between 1 month to 14 years, use 5%, 10%, or 25%.
Can I just make one? I don't disagree with what you're saying, Nate, except for the kids under 1 month. So the issue with doing the D5 is that it ends up being a fairly significant volume, right? So it's 10 mLs per kilo on top of whatever other fluid resuscitation they're getting. So I think that neonates in particular are particularly sensitive to fluid and to electrolyte changes. And I think that's why NRP and now still recommends D10 for under 1 month. So I think using a recommendation to have a max concentration for kids older than a month is fine. And I think D25 is a little excessive, but I recognize in times of shortage, it may be what's available. But I do think that we should put some language in that recommends D10 for kids under 1 month. I think above that, you're probably in decent waters.
I mean, so the question is, if we only have D5, should we withhold it or and not give anything?
No, I don't think that's necessarily the answer, but I think there's probably a gray line in the middle where we can say where available, D10 is recommended, because that is, I think that should have some stronger language than for older kids. But clearly, the absence of a therapy shouldn't preclude its use.
Okay, so then I'll change the wording in my motion. Can we change it slightly?
Wait. Before we proceed any further, perhaps we need to,
before you make another motion. Changing the protocol for an emergency use is not what we should do. We should have an advisory stating that during this emergency period, this is what we are going to do. Number one, the advisory that we had in 2017 is still standing. It did not sunset, and there was nothing to replace it. So right now, for adults, the goal is to give them the right amount of dextrose. It doesn't, I believe it's up to 25 grams. It is not a specific concentration. We can use whatever we have to do. If we want to send out a specific advisory for peds as to how it should be done right now, we can do that as an advisory, but I would advise against changing the protocol, because changing the protocol has to go through CMAC, has to go through the whole process, and advisory does not.
Okay, point taken. So I'll make a motion.
That makes sense. Maybe we can just draft an advisory, it could be based on the mat that we're also writing, and also get input from Dr. Harris, and then have REMAC and the executive committee, review this and send this out. Are you okay with that, Nathan?
Whatever you think is the best way to let us do this. I mean, I'm not sure how imminent our shortage is, but we are preparing for it.
No, I think that's a great idea. I think we should prepare for a shortage. I think that the subject matter experts, Matt Harris, thank you, will be great at writing a advisory that we can then send out to the region once it is approved at the executive committee.
Okay, are you okay with that, Nathan? Can you reach out to Dr. Harris and just
yeah, absolutely. And I could send out the draft of our MAD that we're working on to show what our ideas are to whoever's on the committee.
I think that's a great idea.
Excellent. Ben Zaber had his hand up, and also Paul Barber had his hand up.
Yeah, I was just saying that I think we're bringing forward a new language for the pediatric cardiac arrest protocol to address this in protocol committee. And I was just going to say, yeah, I agree. We should do an advisory at the same time to temporarily rather than. So I agree.
Okay, Dr. Barber, you had your hand up. Okay, very good. Any other new business?
Thanks for the discussion.
Okay, hearing. Thank you. Hearing. I'm sorry?
Glenn looked like he was starting to talk.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to thank everybody for the discussion.
Okay, very good. The next meeting, the next medical standards meeting is together with the next REMAC meeting, which is on March 8th at 5 p.m. I will entertain a motion to adjourn the medical standards committee meeting.
Well, adjourn. So we'll just continue to the next subcommittee report, which is QA, Dr. Redlener or Joseph Ranieri.
So Dr. Redlener is not here, So if Joe is here.
All right.
I'm not sure if Joe is here. Oh, he is here. Okay.
I'm on.
Thanks.
So it's a short report. The QA committee has not met since the last REMAC meeting. Our next scheduled meeting is Monday, February 21st. Our QA project is coming along. We started initiating some of our interventions, most of which were rolled into the protocol update, the 2022 protocol update. We are also working closely with the T&E committee to develop some training programs to do some additional interventions. And we'll have more to report out on the next meeting.
Thank you. Any questions for Joe? All right, hearing none. Let's move to training and education. Morty Lax.
And also, training and ed is actually meeting this Friday. Last time we met was right before the last REMAC meeting. We are up to about 3,000 regional providers that have completed the training online so far. About 2,200 BLS, 800 ALS, and that's all I have to report. Really, we'll report further after the next meeting. There's been a search going on for a new LMS, a regional LMS that will be replacing what we're currently using and hopefully be a little bit more like the States, which is a lot more modern and up to date.
Any questions for Morty? All right, seeing none. We already have the interfacility report. RTAC, is there anybody from RTAC? Doug, do you want to report on the last RTAC meeting?
I was not able to attend the last RTAC meeting. I forgot when the next one is scheduled for, so. It's been a while. I don't think there's been a meeting since we last had this meeting, so. I don't know if Dr. Winchell, he's on this call, I think. I don't know if he was present for it.
No, I wasn't able to make that one either.
All right, so we'll wait for the next meeting and get that report at that time. Regional Council did not meet. Is that correct, Dr. Langsam?
We did not meet since the previous time. I don't have that report to report on what happened back in November, was it?
I believe it was reported at the last meeting.
So I have nothing more to say unless Marie has something to add.
No, that the November council minutes were reported at the last REMAC meeting. So you have nothing to report.
That's right.
The last CMAC update was given at the last REMAC meeting. So there is no additional CMAC information as far as I know, but I will just double check with Dr. Alexandru and Dr. Marshall. Anything to add since the last meeting?
Nothing more that I can recall.
Yeah, we're still trying to get a meeting with the commissioner to push the idea of a state EMS medical director. It's been postponed, I believe, until last date I saw was March 25th or something like that. So.
All right. Thank you. Any new business? Okay, seeing none. Any unfinished business that I can remember? I think we've covered everything.
Can you, I was going to ask if you could form the tag to review Article 30 revisions. Anyone want to volunteer for that?
Sure, I think that's a great idea.
Joe, this is start.
I'll volunteer.
You are very digital.
Lou Marshall will volunteer.
And you did, you will volunteer.
Kevin Manjal, volunteer.
We will send out an email scheduling that meeting. Please look for it in the next week or so. And we will move forward with that. Any other new business or unfinished business that I don't remember? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. And the next meeting, like David said, is on March 8th.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Excellent. Thanks, Jonah. Thanks, Joni. Have a great night, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good night.
All
Stay
right,
well.
good night, everybody.
Thanks.